What Chinese state media is saying about Trump. As Donald Trump takes a wrecking ball to America's relationships with several countries, his words and actions in the Oval Office have twice triggered the strongest reactions. One, extraordinary humiliation of Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky, and two, announcements with Israel's leader Benjamin Netanyahu by his side, a plan for the United States to own Gaza and build a Rivera there. The first incident. The first incident on February 28 marked a remarkable break in US policy towards Ukraine that European countries saw as fundamentally undermining the transatlantic alliance and democratic principle. The second, on February 4, amounted to virtual abandonment of the two-state solution by the US and was immediately rejected by the Arab world. While Russia expressed delight after Zelensky was rebuked, China, the most significant ally of the Kremlin, issued no official reaction. The Chinese, who have been increasingly active diplomatically in the West Asia of late, did say they rejected the displacement of the people of Gaza, but did not mention Trump or the US in a statement. What is China, the world's second most powerful country, thinking at this extraordinary moment? Reporting and commentary in the Global Times and China Daily, two prominent English language outlets of the China's state-run media, and the English version of People's Daily, the mouthpiece of the Chinese Communist Party, provide some insights. Following the Oval Office meeting, Chinese media commentary has focused on weakening of the US-led Western political order and the perils of relying on the US. On March 1, People's Daily published an opinion titled "How to Not Conduct Diplomacy: Lessons from the White House Dispute," stressing the need for dialogue among international actions. It is a fallacy to assume that peace in Ukraine hinges solely on bilateral agreement between American and Russian president, it said. Any such role or agreement, even if it existed before Trump-Zelensky meeting at the White House, would have detached from the broader geopolitical realities. A day later, editorial noted, the meeting was a stark reminder of the shifting dynamics of the global diplomacy and the challenges faced by nations navigating an increasingly unpredictable international landscape. The planned deal on Ukraine minerals, which had drawn criticism for its seemingly exploitative nature, had been originally mooted by Kiev, for whom it represents a painful but necessary compromise in the face of current realities. The Oval Office blow-up appeared to be a carefully orchestrated setup offered which offered a gripping and revealing glimpse of the real politic of the Trump administration. The editorial said, it cautioned the European Union that this episode should serve as a wake-up call. The era of relying on US security guarantees may be coming to an end, and contrasted the American approach with that of China. As the US under the Trump administration is increasingly retreats from the international responsibilities, the concept of US-led West is receding into history. It said, China, for its part, has consistently advocated for dialogue and consensus building to achieve a peaceful resolution to the conflict in Ukraine. Beijing's vision of a community with shared future of mankind is rooted in the principles of multipolarity and mutual respect. Global Times, in an article on March 1, White House shouting match between Trump-Zelensky, rare dramatic in history of modern international relations, said that events demonstrated to the Trump administration that ending the crisis might be more challenging than it had initially planned. On March 2, Global Times said Western countries are reeling not only because of the battlefield and Europe's security future, but also painful realization that under US America First approach, transatlantic alliance is under risk of changing from shared values to transactional relationship. Since the Hamas attack of October 7, 2023, the Israeli military offensive that had all but flattened Gaza, China has officially called for peace and talked about a long-term solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. State media has frequently published criticisms of the US and Israel and pointed to China aid for Gaza. While China has maintained trade and diplomatic ties with Israel, Foreign Minister Wang Yi emphasized on March 7 that Gaza belongs to the Palestinian people and is an inseparable part of the Palestinian territory. He said China supported the plan for Gaza proposed by Egypt and other Arab countries on March 4. There was comparatively less commentary in Chinese media following Trump's initial announcement, but it underlined China's basic position. The Global Times reported comments by a spokesperson that Palestinian government governing Palestine should be fundamental principle of post-conflict governance of Gaza. The article quoted a Chinese professor as saying, Gaza is a Palestinian territory belonging to the people, not the US or any other country. Its future should not be dictated by the US. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be in Mauritius for its National Day, which, like much else in the country, has Indian connection. Its location in the Indian Ocean makes Mauritius strategically important. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be in Mauritius Tuesday for two-day state visit, his second since 2015. He will be chief guest at Mauritius National Day celebrations. Mauritius, a strategically located island nation in the West Indian Ocean, is an important neighbor for India. A key reason for the special ties is that people of Indian origin comprise nearly 70% of the India's population of 1.2 million. Mauritius was once a French colony before being taken over by the British. Under nearly half-century French rule, Indians were first brought to Mauritius from the Pondicherry region to work as artisans and masons. Under British rule, about half a million Indian indentured workers came to Mauritius between 1834 and early 1900s. About two-thirds of these workers settled in Mauritius. Even the National Day has an interesting Indian connection. Mahatma Gandhi has briefly stopped in Mauritius on his way to South Africa in 1901. He gave the Indian workers three transformative messages: the importance of education, the political empowerment, and staying connected with India. Thus, the tribute to Gandhi National Day of Mauritius is celebrated on March 12, the day of the Mahatma Gandhi's Dandi March. Mauritius was among the first few colonies which independent India established diplomatic relations in 1948. Since its independence from the British in 1968, Mauritius has mainly ruled by two major political families, the Ramgulams and the Jugnots. Naveen Ramgoolam, who won the elections last year, has been the Prime Minister of Mauritius twice, from 1995 to 2000 and from 2005 to 2014. His father led the country's freedom struggle and was the first PM of independent Mauritius. He worked closely with many Indian freedom fighters, including Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, and Sarojini Naidu. He had strong links with Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, and even proofread one of Bose's books, The Indian Struggle. In March 2015, when PM Modi visited Mauritius, India signed a memorandum of understanding to improve transport facilities at Agalega Island. This agreement said that infrastructure for improving air connectivity at the outer island of Mauritius will go a long way in ameliorating the condition for inhabitants of this remote island. These facilities will enhance the capabilities of the Mauritian Defence Forces in safeguarding the interest of the outer island. Agalega Island is located 1100 km north of Mauritius and is closer to the Indian southern coast. It is spread over about an area of 70 square kilometer in and in February 24, India and Mauritius jointly inaugurated airstrips and jetty projects. When concerns were raised that India intended to build a military base at the island, the Prime Minister Pravind Jugnauth dismissed them, saying there has never been an agenda for Mauritius to relinquish its sovereignty over the Agalega Island, as some ill-minded persons in and outside Mauritius attempted to make believe. Likewise, there has never been any agenda to transform Agalega Islands to a military base. Here I wish to forcefully deplore, condemn India bashing campaign. For India, China's increasing footprint in the Indian Ocean region has been a cause of concern. It thus wants to work closely with island countries like Mauritius. Notably, Mauritius faced devastating cyclone Sido last year, particularly affecting Agalega. India managed to mobilize its naval assets and utilize the facilities created by Agalega to deliver assistance and relief material. These facilities have additionally assisted Mauritius in its maritime surveillance, patrolling of its vast exclusive economic zone, and safeguarding the assets of blue economy ecosystem from challenges such as piracy as well as drugs and human trafficking. New Delhi will seek to build on some broad thrust areas in its ties. Defense, the two sides are looking at moving on defense and maritime security and are likely to sign a technical agreement on sharing white shipping information between the Indian Navy and the Mauritius authorities. This will further enhance the maritime security of Mauritius and safety of its trading corridors and improve regional cooperation in India, real-time data sharing, the Indian projects, numerous India-assisted development projects dot the Mauritian landscape. The development assistance of Mauritius just in the last decade is nearly $1.1 billion. Of this, about $729 million is through line of credit, $427 million is through grant assistance. The bouquet of executed projects contains three phases of Metro Express. A MoU was signed in January 22 to undertake 96 small people-oriented projects across Mauritius, of which 51 have been inaugurated so far. India has traditionally been the first responder of Mauritius during the times of crisis, including during the COVID-19 pandemic. India is the Wakashio oil spill crisis of 2020 and the cyclone last year. India is among the largest trading partners of Mauritius. Mauritius is second source of FDI investment into India for FY 23-24 after Singapore. Mauritius and India signed the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement on February 22, 21 after nearly 15 years of negotiations. It is first trade agreement signed by India with an African country. At present, 11 Indian PSUs are in Mauritius, including Bank of Baroda, Life Insurance Corporation, etc. The Space Cooperation and Agreement between India and Mauritius for establishment of telemetry, tracking and telecommand station for satellites and launch vehicles and cooperation in the field of space research, science and applications was signed in 1986. In November 23, Mauritius Research and Innovation Council and ISRO signed a memorandum of understanding to establish a framework for cooperation in developing a joint satellite. Mauritius is one of the largest beneficiaries of Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation Program. Since 2002-2003, India has trained among 4,900 Mauritius under civil and defense slots of ITEC. About 2,300 Indian students are currently pursuing higher education in Mauritius in streams such as medicine, hotel management, business studies, etc. The visit will also touch upon the contribution of Sivo Sogo Ramgloom and his ancestry from Bihar and celebrate the common cultural connections. The celebration of Mahashivratri in Mauritius, Ganga Talav Holy Pilgrimage Site, and more. When our ancestors started to using tool, our ancient ancestors were using bone tools for at least 1.5 million years ago, or roughly a million years earlier than was previously thought. A study published in journal Nature reported the earliest known tools older dating to 3.3 million years ago, and our ancestors were likely using wooden tools just as long ago. For a long time, it was held that tool technology was uniquely human trait, linked to the emergence of our genus Homo. British paleoanthropologist Kenneth Oakley in the late 1940s identified tool use and tool making as uniquely human traits, which implied marked capacity for conceptual thought. In his book "Man the Tool Maker", Oakley wrote, "The real difference between what we choose to call an ape and what we call map is the man's mental capacity to conceive the idea of shaping a stone or stick for use in an imagined future eventually is beyond the mental capacity of any known apes." In 1964, British-Canadian paleoanthropologist Louis Leakey and his colleague proposed that collection of roughly 1.7 million-year-old fossils discovered at Tanzania belonged to a new species within our own genus. He named his species Homo habilis, of the handy able man. This assessment was based on the discovery of certain bones that indicated dexterity needed for tool making. Charles Darwin wrote in "The Descent of Man" that chimpanzee in the state of nature cracks a native fruit somewhat like walnut with a stone. Darwin's idea was expanded by the primatologist Jane Goodall in the 1960s. She found that chimps were not only adept at using objects in nature as tools, sticks to fish for termites, leaves to drink water, but also occasionally. Ha ha. Ha sir, come in.